Good morning, evening and afternoon, my dear creatures. Yesterday we went over the first take on the changes when it came to balance tuning of 11.1. Although we expect many of those to change over time, what we have to go over for today is something that might be a little bit more permanent without room for that many changes, which are the many changes announced, particularly for Mythic Plus. There are two major points about the changes from Mythic Plus. So we have to go over both of them because actually it turns out many players had some problems with reading comprehension, or perhaps maybe Blizzard had some problems with being kind of ambiguous with what they meant with their wording in the announcement. Because the first announcement is new account-wide achievement. The War Within Keystone Legend Season 2. Requirement: attain a Mythic Plus rating of at least 2,850 during the next season, which is, TLDR, half of your keys at plus 12 level, more or less. Depending, of course, on the key, on the timing of that key, and if the other keys, of course, are at plus 11, your average should be around 2,850. If you reach that level, the reward is failing to clear a Mythic Plus dungeon within the timer will no longer reduce the level of your keystone below 12 for the season. This is where we got the first problem with reading comprehension, because initially this was actually one of our very requested additions to Mythic Plus. Remove the Deplete system. We had an entire video about it and we explained how very good this could be for players because it would give them way more incentives in continuing to play Mythic Plus. Just consider the amount of times players gave up in interacting with Mythic Plus because of the feeling of having your own key, and then your own key gets depleted, so now you have to run a key you don't even need to try to bring that key up to one level, and then if that key also gets depleted, now you kind of give up for the week. Or think about the problem with queue times. Imagine having to wait 20 minutes in queue, perhaps not even as a particularly meta spec, to finally be invited to a group, and then you wipe on pull 1 and the group disbands. So now you're back to waiting 20 minutes in queue. Whereas if you had the Deplete system, you could have simply gotten out of the dungeon, reset the instance and try again. So this would have incentivized players to try again in Mythic Plus, because they can see the improvement, they can see increasing their score, their rating on the horizon. Their playtime would increase significantly compared to their wait time in the city waiting to join a group. And finally, we actually do get the addition of the Deplete system. However, in possibly a typical Blizzard way, it's quite the convoluted and mostly useless type of deplete. Point number one, it starts for players who are already clearing plus 12s. So this is not going to do anything if you were stuck at plus 8, plus 9, plus 10s or plus 11s to begin with. However, next season, just like every other season in Mythic Plus, the average key level is going to go up. Usually it's 4 to 5 levels when you have the level squish in Mythic Plus from one season to the next. So if right now the very high keys are plus 18 to plus 19s, at the beginning of the next season, reasonably the very high keys will be in the 13 to 14 range for the first few weeks. And very shortly after, many players will be able to push much higher, compared to the beginning of this expansion, where even after a couple of months, there are still many players at the plus 7, 8 or 9 range. So don't think that this achievement will still touch very few players, because right now plus 12s are not run a lot. Next season, those plus 12s will be somewhat comparable to a plus 8 that you're doing now. Point number two, which might cause this to be a problem, is the fact that one of the cool things about the Deplete system would have been allowing high level pushers, even though we mentioned in our video that this wasn't going to be the best part about the Deplete system, but it would have allowed title pushers, very high key runners, to be able to avoid all of that grind in pushing a key back up to the high level they need, as well as trying to find the actual key they wanted at high level. If you removed the Deplete system. This, however, has a very precise wording to the achievement. You will no longer reduce the level of your keys below 12. This means that they will simply stop at 12 if you keep depleting them from a plus 17. You can still deplete from plus 17 to plus 16, and then from plus 16 to plus 15, all the way down to 12. But if you deplete the 12, it's gonna stay at 12. So the actual NO-Deplete system only exists at plus 12 level and below. Above plus 12, the Deplete system is still alive and kicking. Now again, do not compare this plus 12 level to this current season. Plus 12 level the next season will be the key level to reach. Why? Remember, we just upped the rewards of Mythic plus Gilded crests in anticipation for next season, because where is the highest level now to get your Gilded crests from? You went from 12 Gilded crests in A+8 all the way up to 20 Gilded crests in A+12. That will be the new benchmark for you to park all of your characters, all of your alts for maximum Gilded crest acquisition next season. It will be at +12. So practically this new meta achievement is to help players have an easier time reach that level to basically grind Gilded crests. It's not to climb, it's not to help players climb either at the low level, at +7, 8, 9, 10 or 11, because actually at that level depleting is still healthy. You should still learn through failure at that low level of keys, and it also won't work when it comes to climbing higher than +12. That's where it gets a little bit more hurtful in terms of your time, the time you would have to spend through all sifting through all of the depletes and the failed keys after 12. It will only work at the +12 level, which is where the max reward from Mythic Plus will be next season. So it is very good. It is a very good addition, especially the account-wide achievement. This means that now, if you were to compare this to this season, your scuffed 612 level alt might be able to bring up a key to that level and then basically try again his own key until it's completed. It would have been much harder for scuffed undergeared characters without as much of an experience in Mythic Plus to find groups to be invited in those level of keys. But now, with your key not depleting, it means you can still try again in your own key, no matter how many times it gets depleted at +12 level. So it will also be helpful for all of your alts to get to that level much faster. Now, the second problem with reading comprehension, and to be fair, this is much more on Blizzard's end with their wording, is the change to the affixes. Now, some changes are kind of whatever. The new added Zaratat's Bargain Pulsar. Now you have some orbs around you that you have to stay away from other players if you don't want to damage them. So actually opportunity for other players to grief you in your Mythic Plus keys, as well as normalizing the buffs that enemies can get. Now you don't have different affixes that if you fail to complete them, they do different things to the mobs. Now they all gain simply more damage and less damage taken if you fail the affix. The real important change to the affix is the redesign of Zalatat's Guile. Now causes keystones above level 12 to increase health and damage of enemies by 12% per level instead of 10% per level. Now, this is where the reading comprehension went completely haywire, because people assumed, hold on a second, Zaratat's Guile increases all damage and health of enemies by 10%, and now it's 12%, so it's getting stronger? No. That's not what it means. What it means is current Zaratat's Guile is an extra added jump in difficulty once you reach +12. It used to be even more brutal at the start of the season, where the jump was +20% more health and damage. Blizzard nerfed it down to 10% more health and damage. So every key that you do scales 10% more damage and 10% more health of enemies. And then once you jump at 12, you still get the 10% more damage and health of enemies because of the scaling of the key plus Zaratat's Guile. The new Zaratat's Guile simply increases the normal scaling of the key to go from +10% health and damage per level to 12% health and damage per level. But the initial jump, the one-time increase of +10% flat once you enter +12 is removed. This is how things would change roughly with this change in 11.1. What this means is that on the left, you have what we have now, where the toughness of a Mythic Plus key would increase by 21%, going from 11 to 12, because, the default damage of an 11, 100% of its damage and health of enemies would be increased by 10% because of the key scaling, and then also increased by another 10% because of Zaratat's Guile. The change that we have to the right, which will happen in 11.1, is that one-time jump is removed, but now every key increases by 12% instead of 10. This means practically that the 12, 13, 14 and 15 keys are going to be easier than they are now. 16 is basically the same, and only at 17 plus will keys start to become actually harder in the new system than in this current system. So it's actually a bad thing for key pushers, it's a bad thing for title chasing players than it is for the normies, for the casuals, or for very simply players who just want to farm their gilded crests at plus 12. For you, that is actually a buff. This will actually make the key easier. This is also was something that was announced by Blizzard, that they were planning to reduce the level jump, the difficulty jump from 11 to 12, and this is what they are doing to smoothen that. They simply spread the damage increase over the course of multiple keys rather than a single big jump from 11 to 12, which is also a pretty funny thing because the huge jump from 11 to 12 this season came at no gain for your character because you gained no more gear from a plus 12, you had no more higher item level or no more crests in a plus 12. Meanwhile, in the season where you actually gain a whole bunch of goodies in a plus 12 because you now get more gilded crests in a plus 12, they actually remove the difficulty jump from 11 to 12. Now the wording is also kind of weird on the announcement itself, because if you actually read what the redesign says is now causes keystones above level 12 to have this fixed damage increase. So actually, if this is not just a typo, then the level scaling will simply go up one level. So keys would be easier at 12 all the way up to 17 instead of 16, because the extra harder scaling of 12% health and damage won't start at plus 12 but above plus 12, so it will start at plus 13. So it is an even smoothened out damage increase, damage spread over multiple keys than what it is now. So these are the two major changes coming to Mythic Plus next season. Number one, the new meta achievement to 2850 rating to get you the no-deplete mechanic at plus 12 level, which will be your new checkpoint for max rewards in Season 2 when it comes to Mythic Plus, and then the spreading out of the difficulty once you start getting above plus 12 rather than having a single big jump at plus 12 level. Overall, it's still positive because spreading out the difficulty is an overall flat positive. Yes, it will annoy the 0.1, even 0.01% of players pushing past plus 17s, which is where they will find the keys starting to get actually harder next season. But for the remaining part of the player base, it will be a flat benefit. And then even the deplete system, it is still a positive, although not as big of a positive as it could have been if you actually made keys not deplete above plus 12, period, rather than just not depleting at and up to plus 12 level. So, with this thing out of the way, this is what we have for today, for this Saturday, the adjustments made to Mythic Plus, planned for Mythic Plus for next season. So, with this out of the way, we can now leave each other on this Saturday. Thanks, of course, as usual, guys, for watching the video, together with, of course, supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, morning. Actually, I'm going to write down the date on this Saturday. I woke up before noon. It's a time to remember.